So I put out a video called Red Dots for Pores, asking the audience about the red dot thing. Like I said in that video, I'm a little bit disconnected from this. For me, red dots are a reality of my life. Doesn't matter what I want to do. Now, competitively, I typically shot iron sight divisions because I find iron sights more interesting. They're more engaging to shoot. However, like there's divisions, like red dots make people, if they train a lot, especially, they're going to be able to shoot higher scores. So that's why we have divisions in competition. And one thing that drives the divisions is whether or not you have a red dot. So I was always attracted to iron sight shooting because just like I said, it's harder. It's more interesting to me. But the way the market is now, the way that the people who are training a lot, they have red dots on their guns by and large. And it's like, they're the same way a lot of times. Guys will be like, oh, I want to shoot, production division, or I want to shoot, whatever, limited division, but it's dead. Like nobody shoots that shit anymore. So now I'm shooting again with the red dot. And it's like, yeah, cool. I mean, that makes sense to me. It would be weird if I showed up to teach a course at this point without a red dot on my gun. Because in an open enrollment class, 90% of the guys are going to have red dots anyway. And if it's an agency or a military unit, typically they're all going to have red dots. For like the places that I go, they're all going to have red dots. So it doesn't make much sense for me to shoot iron sights all the time anymore. But anyway, I was asking these people, like, hey, is this a money thing why you don't have red dots on the pistols? I think it probably is in a lot of cases. But the other thing I should say is these are guys that cannot train the way that I'm talking about because of money, will not, whatever. So it's like the people that I see are the people that are throwing down tons of money on shooting. So a red dot's not a huge deal to them for, because of that. But anyway, let's read some of these comments and talk about it. One guy says, red dots ain't going anywhere. Prices are and will continue to come down and reliability continues to rise. This is the trend I've seen. This trend will eventually catch up to the casual shooter as they have become more and more predominant, in my opinion. Yes, probably. I think there's some time before that's going to happen, but it'll probably happen at some point. Another comment. The casual shooters, gun owners that I know don't even think about getting a red dot for their pistols. It's not even on the radar. I just showed a friend of mine my Glock with an SRO on it. And he said, oh, these are the kind where you have to close one eye when you look through it. Like, yeah, most people don't really want that. They're not looking to spend money on a red dot. All right. One guy says, people don't buy red dots because they have tried what they can do with it. Their eyes are still okay and they think they shoot okay already. $300 is almost the price of another firearm already. But when they get to use one, they realize everything is in focus, including the target. They might like it. For years, I was satisfied being a defensive shooter, being able to hit the middle of a thorax in self-defense distances. That was good enough for me with my aging eyes. And then I was able to consistently hit dots the size of a penny at 10 yards with a red dot. A new door just opened for me. I got to enjoy shooting more because now my accuracy is based on how I hold the gun and my trigger finger and no longer the limitation of my eyesight. Currently, I have optics on most of my firearms, even my older handguns. I didn't even have to mill them, just got the red dot adapter plates. Yeah, that's a common experience. A lot of guys report that they can shoot tighter groups with the red dots. They like that. To your question, not USPSA or ID, to your question, the cost seems high. Practical shooters I know, red dots, because of their eyes, are more fun. Younger people like red dots. It's better, it's cooler, it's more fun, whatever. Cost is not a real factor if they can afford guns and ammo. That's kind of where I'm at with it. Like if you're affording, like you can buy like multiple like Glocks and you're buying, a case of ammo a month and shooting that, you could get a red dot if you really wanted one. I don't think you need that shit, but if you want one, you can get one. Most I've seen anyway get a Holosun because it's less expensive. I've got to use the Trijicon and the Holosun, and truthfully, I can't tell much of a difference except cost. I agree with that. And I'm not an expert though. Bottom line, okay. He likes Holosun. And another comment. What delayed me was the cost of a new gun that was optic cut, but when I was able to afford a gun for the optic, the cost of the optic was a non-factor. All right, fair enough. Yes, the needing to mill the guns for an optic is kind of annoying. The optics ready guns are definitely a big step in the right direction as far as making the gun pretty adaptable. You can do whatever you want with it. One guy says, for years, I wasn't getting a red dot because of the price and the fact that I'd have to mill my slide. I was looking at 100 to 150 the cost of my M&P on top of what I'd already paid on it. Trijicon came out with the HD and their basic RMRs were around 350 or so. So I finally managed to jump on that. I had to let the dot sit around in the case until I could afford the slide cut too. All right, there you go. So that's the thing. So anyway, reading through all those comments, I think cost is a big, big issue. So it gets me to the point of this, kind of what my takeaway is from reading the comments and having the conversation with people. I think the attitude where it's like, oh, you need a red dot, bro. Like you need to have a red dot. I think that's kind of counterproductive. Like, I don't think people do. If you just, I mean, like what's wrong with this? Like if I just want to train, like I can get a Glock and do a bunch of dry fire, very little live ammo, and I can get a very, very high level of proficiency. And it's, you don't need to get a red dot to have a high level of proficiency with a handgun. You really don't. So I think that like hey, you need a red dot, that doesn't help. That's not like good for anyone. It's kind of like, if people buy rifles, it's like, oh, you need this type of glass for it. It's like, well, do you really need that? A lot of that stuff is pretty expensive. So I'm cool with you guys. Have a dot, don't have a dot. Doesn't really make much difference to me. But for guys, like it's probably not helpful to tell them they need to have a red dot because you're just putting this like a requirement or a barrier in place to people that doesn't really exist. Like you don't really need the red dot for training. You don't need the red dot to be proficient. It's just a thing. Like if you like it and you want it, go ahead and get one. Hell, get two. And if you can't afford it, not a huge deal. Or you don't want one, not a huge deal. Doesn't make much difference to me.